Survivor's ready. Go!
Travis spoken.
This island is pretty much full of only two things: snakes and rats.
The fake dead grandmother could easily go down as the dirtiest thing ever to be done in this game.
I am the king, and I am back.
But I've got the $1 million check written already. I mean, I'm the winner.
The winner of the first Survivor competition is Rich.
Direct from Hobart, it's now time for the only dedicated radio show in Australia devoted to the hit TV show Survivor, bringing you the latest news and the biggest interviews from the king of reality television. It's Survivor Oz, and here's your host, Ben Waterworth.
Hello everybody, and welcome once again to Survivor Oz, Australia's #1 TV and film podcast, as we continue our coverage of the 29th season of Survivor, San Juan del Sur. Huge double episode this week. We have plenty to talk about, and what a week we have when it comes to these next two people to chat about these two episodes. When you think of big names in the world of Survivor, you often think of these two gentlemen. They've covered 6 seasons of the show that we love, and each of their seasons they were standout characters. They came close to winning. Unfortunately, they didn't win, but we won't mention that again because otherwise they'll probably hang up on me. First of all, from Survivor Cook Islands, Survivor Micronesia, and Survivor Philippines, it is the one and only Jonathan Penner. Penner, welcome back to Survivor Oz.
Thank you, man. We're glad to be back down under, as always.
Always good. And joining us from Tocantins, Heroes vs. Villains, and South Pacific, the one, the only Benjamin Coach Wade. Coach, welcome back to Survivor Oz.
Thank you. I'm an esteemed company tonight. It's great to be here.
It is pleasure, and the fact that I've got you both on the line here now. Just quickly for our listeners, you two have obviously crossed paths over the years, given the circles that you no doubt associate with. But I mean, Coach, I'll ask you this first. Do you remember the first time that you met Jonathan Penner?
First time that I met Jonathan Penner, is that the question?
Yes. Do you remember?
It was at, yeah, of course I do. It was actually outside of the Renaissance Hotel, I think that was the name of it, and it was in Hollywood, and it was the Heroes and Villains, right before the Heroes and Villains finale. And we chatted a little bit. I was running around on a motorized skateboard, but before I jetted off down Melrose, I actually talked to him. It was great to meet him.
Brilliant. What about Petty, your memories?
Well, my memory was, that I was outside and Coach came out and was incredibly gracious, and obviously I was a fan of his and was excited. I'd been watching him on TV, and he's like, oh my God, I really wanted to get a chance to talk to you. So we really had it was a lovely conversation. I was very appreciative of it.
There you go.
I will say this, one of my things about Penner was that I said, well, he comes off as being really witty on the show, and I feel like I come off as witty at times on the show. I realize, though, that he's got so much more wit than me that if I ever played a season with him, I think he might outshine the Dragon Slayer. That's what I thought, actually. That was my first impression.
Yeah, but I can't slay any dragons.
You have true wit. Mine is just kind of all made up.
Well,
wow.
Wit, charm, and the ability to destroy massive lizards.
Wow, we're learning. Well, it's kind of interesting because, I mean, you guys covered sort of, 6 seasons in the space of about 12, 13 seasons, and it's interesting that neither of you have kind of been on the same season together. I would be fascinated to see how you two would play. Penner, would you work with Coach?
Of course I would. Well, what I've learned is, A, you always say yes, and B, I actually would.
Yes, there's an important factor there.
What am I going to say?
Yes.
No, I wouldn't work with him. Of course I would. But the truth is, I think we would work really well together, and we would probably laugh our asses off for 39 days.
Coach, you're going to say yes to that too, of course, aren't you?
I would have to agree to that exactly.
Yes, that's the good thing. Now, we're going to do something a bit different on this week's podcast. We're going to get to some listed questions first because Coach has a very busy lifestyle, Coach. You're slaying all those dragons out there. You know, you've got to keep the world safe. So we appreciate that, first of all, Coach. Thank you. But Coach, unfortunately, hasn't seen the episode, so we're going to get to some of these questions, get just some initial thoughts from Coach about the season in general, and then Penner and I are going to get to the bulk of these double episodes to talk about that. So, Coach, I'll start off with you because we had you on last year for our Cagayan finale recap, so we got to talk about the season basically in a whole there. But your take, not including this week's double episode, have you been enjoying this season, not enjoying this season? What's been your general vibe of San Juan del Sur?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, right? You get a season like last season, and actually there's been so many seasons that have been great, back-to-back great seasons. It's hard to keep that momentum going. And so initially, I was a little bit disappointed with this season. I thought that they were lacking characters. They were lacking some golden egg layers out there, like Penner and myself and Cochran, that can just, we sit down on the confessional seat and we just get on the roll, and they just love grabbing, clips that we're saying. And so you don't have that. You don't have the golden egg out there with one-liners, and so I think that it's missing that. And of course, until recently, it was missing some really fierce strategy and also twists and turns and blindsides, et cetera, et cetera. So we see that, though. I mean, I think that the season's warming up. I think it's gonna get good. I hope it's gonna be good. The last episode that we saw with both idols playing, of course, everybody loves that. As a player, you don't love that situation at all, but as a fan watching it, it's riveting. And so I think it's starting to move in the right direction.
Penner?
I concur with everything the coach says. He's much more political than I am. I think it's not a great season. Part of it, this is the downside of the blood versus water is you're going to get players out there who really just don't want to be out there. They're out there because their loved one has always wanted to play, and it's like, I can only play if you come with me, so, okay, here we go. I agree with Coach that the characters are just not riveting, and to me, maybe it's just where I am in my life, but watching these dynamics between the lovers or even the mom and the daughter is just not as interesting to me as watching five strangers. I guess we're at the point where there's 5 or 6 people out there really going at it, and their alliances are not set in stone.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating, I think, with the opinions of this season, and I found it a lot, been doing these recaps, it's, for the most part, a lot of the former contestants, such as, both of you, that haven't really been particularly enjoying it that much. I mean, for example, we do our power rankings each week, and we initially started off with Sandra and Troyzan doing it. Sandra actually left halfway through because she hasn't been enjoying this season that much. So,
yeah, right.
You don't argue with the Queen. If she wants to leave, then Sandra can leave. Like, that's fine. But, is that kind of through the survivors that you've been talking to? I'll start with you, Coach, for this one. Has this kind of been a general vibe amongst most of the former players at this season? Has exactly been how you've described it?
I think so. We're more critical, maybe, of the common person. But, even my wife was like, this is pretty boring, and yet the concept is so brilliant, it doesn't get old. So that's a good thing, right? I mean, it's such a good concept. You still look forward to it, right? I mean, it's not, I would imagine it would have to be a really bad season for me to go into the DVR and stop recording and stop watching the episode. So, I mean, it's still engaging. But we've set a high standard, and players like Penner and myself, we want to see something. We want to see something that wows us, that wow factor. What are you going to do for an encore? What's going to be next? What's going to be the emergence of the next great character? Not necessarily great player, but great character. And then the emergence of the next great player. So we want to see that. And so we have that standard that's already been set. It's not being met.
Would you agree with that, Penner?
Absolutely. Survivor is, even bad Survivor or not great Survivor is better than damn near anything else on TV. It's totally addictive, right? I mean, it's a great show. So, as Coach says, you got a high standard, and this not great season is still better than anything else you're going to find, and I can't get enough of it. But they've, as I say, they've traded the individual characters for these dynamics, and to me right now the most you've seen the episode before, Coach, so I'm not going to spoil. Most exciting players out there, in at least in this double episode, are the folks whose other halves have already been voted off. It's Natalie, it's Reed, are the most interesting players and the ones who have to strategize their butts off and who get to shine as characters. I guess Keith as well. He and his son both are pretty strong characters. He's stronger, but I don't know. The blood versus water, when it's good, is fascinating, and now I just feel like it's boring.
Do you think blood versus water as a twist, was it too soon to bring it back, and also with entirely new players, Penner? I mean, do you think this is a twist that maybe only works with returning players?
Well, I mean, it certainly works, but this isn't a great season. So I don't know. If they're going to do it again, I would imagine they would do it with some returning players. I mean, they keep mixing it up, and obviously they've gotten some new life or out of non-returning seasons. The last season with Tony was a great one. He was an incredible character who played a brilliant game, obviously. And this season they thought they could, catch, lightning in a bottle again, because the blood versus water season, the first one was an excellent season. So, you can't fault them. My God, the show's been on for 15 years. I mean, the fact that they can, the weakest thing for me is that they're basically saying, like, the clue is look here under this rock
yes.
so that we can get more idols into play.
Yes.
We can talk about that if you want to.
Oh,
but,
we will.
I mean, listen, if this can go for 2 more years, I don't know what they'll pull some crazy stuff out of their hat, I guess. I don't know. Coach, do you think blood versus water is going to come back?
Coach, do you that question?
Yep, I'm just trying to think of I mean, when you make me follow Penner, then I have to really be on my game. It's easier to go first. I really like. So, I really like what's been said. Will they bring it back? Maybe. You don't want to tank a whole idea because they really love the idea. Jeff's whole MO is to try to step into role as counselor at times and to hope that something comes up between the couples, which it doesn't really. So then, we like to see, father shedding a tear and the son doesn't realize that his father even cares for him that much. That's great. But really, I think the original concept was see couples, fight, couples divorce, brother and sister. I think that they wanted that dynamic. It's an interesting point that is it better with returning players or original cast? Penner said one is out there for the other. I also think that seeing a returning player and getting to know them and then seeing their loved one, unfortunately, not that their loved ones, Tyson's loved one first, and, we saw Rupert's wife a little bit. I think it's cool to get to know the other half of people that we already know on the show. So maybe that's another thing that makes it a little bit interesting.
Yeah, definitely, because I think, the original season, I think really the only people that we sort of knew of, we'd seen, Rupert's wife obviously had been out there for a award previously, and, we knew Monica was married to Brad Culpepper, so, and of course Kat with Hayden, who of course was well known from Big Brother, so, they were really sort of your only ones that were slightly familiar, so exactly as you said, this is where, we see Coach on, on Blood vs. Water 3, if you're out there with your wife, you're out there with, your deputy coach again, and Penny, you're there with your son, or, your wife. We see them on rewards briefly sometimes, but, we don't know anything more about them as a viewer of Survivor. And sometimes, no doubt, the people that you would bring along for these seasons, particularly, Coach, I think you would have some very interesting people that you could bring along. They make characters out of themselves, no doubt.
Possibly.
I think part of the problem is that not everyone's spouse is an alpha dog. Not everyone's spouse is going to be look, when you've got 20 players out there, everyone is prepared to cut each other's throat to get to the top if they're strangers. If you've got 10 couples or blood versus water pairs, that's half as many assassinations that you've eliminated. Missy is just not going to get rid of Baylor, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. John and Jackie are just not going to cut each other's throats, and so you have this kind of block voting, and you're hoping for what you were talking about. Where Jeff loves to be the counselor, you're hoping there's going to be some tears or some breakdown out there. Well, I think the reverse happens because unlike in normal Survivor where you don't have a support system, here these folks do have a support system. They have a trusted ear that they can pour their hearts out into. And one of the reasons I think, Coach, that people are who are good storytellers or expressive in the confessionals. For me, I use the confessionals like my shrink. That was the only time that I could actually speak my mind and just pour my heart out. That had happened to be on camera, made for good TV sometimes, I guess. But for me, it was very cathartic. I actually had an opportunity to just fucking tell the truth, and just say what was actually on my mind.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. No, I agree. I completely agree. I think that, that's the one. Well, another thing is that's 1 hour of entertainment that you get if you're not doing a challenge. It does become so boring out there with not the normal mental stimulation of texts and books and computers and networking and driving someplace and going out for a meal. You take all that stuff away, you become very, very bored, very restless. So it gives us a chance to not only, have that hour of counseling and shrink and one person that at least the first time you're on there, you think that you can trust by talking into the producer. It's like, this is my hour to do something, to be valued, to be appreciated, because you don't know what people are, saying about you behind your back. It's that unsettling part makes the confessionals that much more settling.
It's fascinating, kind of all these bits and extended parts that I think a lot of people like you mentioned things like it's so boring out there and things like that as well that you never get to experience unless you play the game clearly, and that's why we get you on the show to talk about these aspects of things that we'll never get to see. I want to get to some of these listed questions because Coach, I want you to go and watch these episodes because Penner and I are going to discuss the things that happened throughout this. But one thing I just quickly before I get to these questions. We've seen, I think, a lot of people tips to win early on a few weeks ago have gone. Like everyone was talking up Josh's game. Josh is going to win this. He goes. Jeremy, everybody then he's getting this edit. He's going to win. He goes. Do you feel, kind of the editing this season just in general, I'll start with you, Coach, with this. Do you think that in a way the editors are doing this deliberately, like shoving a Josh and a Jeremy down your throat, then getting them blindsided the way we do so that we are confused at this point of the season and seeing a lot of mistakes being made from these new players so we really, as a viewer, kept guessing right to the end, as opposed to a season that we see with some that it's kind of obvious that we've got a Tyson or a Cochran winning from a certain point?
I usually do think about the producer's angle. I think part of that is what you just said, but I think the other part is that their loved one is voted out. We didn't hear Reed say 2 words the first 4 episodes, and then all of a sudden, when his lover gets voted out, he's all of a sudden now starting to talk. So I think a little bit is that. Maybe they're focused on the couples, or they're focused on the pairs dynamics, or trying to tell both of those stories. And then when one gets voted off, in Jeremy's case, then he becomes quite an astute character. I did think he was going to win it for a little while there. So maybe they are juicing the editing up so that we do keep guessing. That's what we want to do. As much as we want to know what's going to happen, we also are thrilled when we don't have a clue what's going on.
Absolutely. Penner?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I was as blindsided as everybody else, I guess, when Jeremy went. That was great editing and unusual. Obviously the editors, have had realized that we were onto some of their tricks, and you're given 2 choices. It's going to be one of these 2 people, and they gave us 2 choices, and then it was Jeremy. So that was awesome. part of the problem may be that the remaining players, this is something we were just talking about, are maybe not as interesting as some of those players who went first or weren't, haven't been playing such a dynamic strategic game. They've been playing this slow and steady couples game, I guess. And these other folks are out there. I mean, Coach, you and I both know that, certainly the first time you play, you're so excited to be playing Survivor, you're sort of strategizing your butt off, and it's very easy to overplay, I certainly did that my first, time out there. I played, way too hard and fast, and got burned out of the game, earlier, obviously, than I wanted to, and that may have been what happened here. And so we're, at this point, left with some players that, at least from my perspective, aren't as exciting or even as interesting as the two that you just mentioned were.
It's so interesting how it all happens with it. It's kind of like, I don't know if this is a fair comparison. You might disagree with me here, Penner, but like Cook Islands to me was a season which we had so many great personalities that went out fairly earlier in the middle of the season, and we were left kind of with a ending of Cook Islands where we had people that weren't necessarily your most dynamic personalities. So, I mean, I don't know if we're going down a path of a Cook Islands style season or not. I don't know if you agree kind of with that comparison.
Well, I think that Cook Islands had some pretty, how can I put this? The twists and turns that actually just occurred naturally without, there was only one idol. It was the first time Exile Island was out there, and I guess it made some impact, but not tremendously. There were great personalities on Cook Islands, and a lot of those folks, myself included, I'm not sure I'm a great personality, but for whatever reason they brought me back. But Arvady was out there, Ozzy was out there, Candace was out there, and there was the guy who actually won, who played a brilliant game, Yul. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just in the casting. I don't know, and just let the game play as it's going to play. You may not need to. I don't know. Look, games evolve. Would football be the same without the field goals and the forward passes? They're not playing it the way they played it 40 years ago. And Survivor has to evolve too, and they can always course correct as they go. But right now, I just think that the blood versus water is played out the way it needed to play out, and we as an audience are like, yeah, it's not great.
I don't know if, Coach, you've had anything to add to that aspect, or
certainly not.
No, there you go. Now, I just thought I'd give you the option there, Coach, just in case. Now, some of these list of questions, these were great ones we got sent in here. Russ Bartlett, this one's for you, Coach. Which quote from the Hellenistic period do you feel best describes Alec and Drew Christie?
Wow. Well, I mean, get back to me on that as I quickly Google Hellenistic quotes, right? I mean, that's what I did all my seasons. I didn't go around quoting Nietzsche until the plane flight over, when I was like writing down a Nietzsche book and wanting to sound smarter than I was. Ask Penner's question. I'm going to be Googling on my phone.
Go. You're ruining the illusion here, Coach. Come on. Well,
I don't know anything about the Hellenistic period. Helen Reddy are they talking about?
Yes, we'll go with that. That's fun. Well, here's one here for you, Penner. Billy Garcia says, just tell Penner I miss him.
Oh, man, say, Billy, if you're listening, much love, man. I hope you're doing fantastically well. And I miss you, too. You're a great guy, and I hope life is treating you well.
We had him on last week. He did our recap last week with Rita, so I'm sure he's listening right now. Now, also we got one here. This one's kind of for both of you. Another former castaway in Jimmy T, James Tarantino from Nicaragua. He asked the question for both of you. Can you describe the emotional toll playing the game of Survivor took on both of you? There's a sort of a full-on question. Coach, do you want to answer that one first?
Well, I must go back to the Hellenistic quotes.
Please do.
Epicurus once said that death does not concern us because as long as we exist, death is not here, and when it does come, we no longer exist. I've had that memorized since I was 5 years old.
Yes.
And it described those two because they have no clue of life or death in Survivor. Okay.
Perfect. That's what I was hoping you would say, yes.
I love
did
that.
just quickly whip out the Google. Okay, so emotional toll, I mean, obviously, I think that my 3 seasons have been some of the extremes in terms of I can't say editing anymore. I said that after the first time as kind of a defense. I'm an eclectic person, and I have such a varied personality. I can be sensitive, I can be emotional, I can be tough, I can be delusional, I can be, philosophical. And so because of that, they took advantage. They did a great job, and they pulled out those different parts of the personality. So the first time, the emotional toll was, wow, I went out there and did great things, and I watched myself on TV and think, how am I going to look stupid this week? The second time, I thought, well, at least I'll see the more sensitive side, and that I actually felt better. I felt redeemed. And then the last time, it was like you're so close, and you just feel like as they say that second place is first losers, and so that took an emotional toll because then, even now, final tribal council. I'm good right now, no problem. Off season, no Survivor on, no problem. Final tribal council, I asked myself, what could I have done different to get those 2 votes to win the $1 million? So I mean, it does take an emotional toll. You think about it, and especially if Survivor went off the air, the memories I think would fade a little bit for all of us. But because it's there and we live it, and we live it with those new contestants or returning contestants, I think the emotional victories and scars continue to surface.
There you go. Penner?
Wow. Well, talk about how do you top that.
Any Hellenistic period quotes to add?
No, Helen Reddy is all I can do for you. Delta Dawn.
I think if any producer would have watched this or listened to this show, or folks would have check it out, or just whoever, they'd just be like, we got to get these 2 guys on at the same time. Because see, the good thing is, Penner would be saying his thing. I wouldn't know what he was saying. I'd be saying my thing. He wouldn't know what I was saying. It would be an editor's wet dream.
Nightmare. Yeah, a wet dream. That's what I meant. Speaking of wet dreams, the emotional toll on me has been. No, that was a bad segue. The emotional toll. Well, I had a physical toll, certainly. I've never been the same, and I'm not just talking about my knee. I mean, I'm a little bit older, I think, than you, Coach, but, my body has taken a serious beating. My weight has gone up and down based on I packed on the pounds before I played every time. I lost a ton of weight every time I played. I got super sick, obviously, the second time I played, and spent time in the hospital and, had a kind of scary experience there. And so, physically, it's taken a toll on me. And emotionally, I think, honestly, I've come out feeling great. I've made terrible mistakes. I've come to realize that I'm not the best Survivor player ever, and have no one to blame for my not doing better in the game than myself, and take that responsibility fully. I screwed up and played my ass off and had a fantastic time and was very happy with the way that I played and the experiences that I had, and wish that I could have been a better player, but I also wish I was taller and better looking and had tattoos and could whip out my Google and slay dragons. So I mean, so in some ways I've come to terms with myself, and yeah, sometimes I say, shit, man, you really blew it. You had it in your hands. And then other times I say, yeah, but look at how far I went, and who the hell ever would have imagined me playing Survivor in the first place, let alone 3 times. I had much more, fun, and I've certainly had my shots, and I've had a ball, and it's been a big part of my life for the last 8-10 years. It's been great.
I just had this weird moment where I just realised I'm here on a episode in my, plucky little office in Australia. I'm talking to a man who slays dragons and a man who's been nominated for an Academy Award. So I just had an out-of-body experience right there, guys. That's the emotional toll this is taking on me. So,
well, so you see, you get to have fun too, and
Yeah.
and we're all here in the same place doing the exact same thing right now. So it's all good.
thank you, Mark Burnett and Charlie Parsons, for doing that. Now, a couple more here, Coach, and we'll let you go watch the episodes. Here's a fun one. Willie LaShawn asks, how do you think you two would go on The Amazing Race? I'm going to start with you on that one, Coach.
Who, Penner and I?
Yeah, you two on The Amazing Race.
Oh, man, these are actually pretty good questions. Usually the questions are bonehead. How would we go on Amazing Race? I think it would be a bromance from start to finish. We'd win the whole thing.
Well, you think we'd win it?
I said it would be a bromance from the very beginning, and we would win the whole thing.
Yeah, man, I was going to say the same thing. How much fun would we have, dude?
That would be
Goof it out
awesome.
these other. It would be awesome.
And we'd have to get married. We'd have to get married beforehand because they won't let people that meet on Survivor unless they get married. So we'll get married and then avoid it a couple of days after we get done.
You know what, dude? If we got married, they would probably take us on The Amazing Race.
Who takes whose name? Do we have Coach
No, we'd
Penner?
share it, man. No, it'd be Penner Wade and Wade Penner. It'd be winner.
Winner. There we go.
There you go.
That's your hashtag name at the bottom of the screen. None of this Keith and Whitney
There you
Team
go.
Nashville. It's
Right.
Team Winner.
That's awesome.
Oh, wow. Make this happen, CBS. Come on. You can put Keith and Whitney on. Why not Penner and Coach?
Yeah, come on. Man.
Did you
Yeah,
watch
too much fun.
Keith and Whitney, Coach? Did you see them on The Amazing Race?
I'm sorry, and I'm going to piss a lot of people off. I did not support them. No, sorry. I won't go into the other details.
Okay, just thought I'd check.
I did not watch them. Sorry.
South Pacific alumni. Yeah, we'll go over those. Final one I'll get here for both of you. One of our Oslets, Nick Chester. I love this question. Please discuss who loves or hates Aussie the most.
Who loves or hates Ozzy?
Penner must start on this one.
Yeah, who loves or hates Aussie the most?
Well, I don't hate. I mean, you'll speak about that, whether you hate him. I certainly don't hate him. I mean, I can't say I love Ozzy, but I have no problem with Ozzy, and I think Ozzy is mellowed and is doing great. I mean, I haven't talked to Ozzy in a long time, but I have nothing but utmost respect for Ozzy, and I hope he's happy.
Now, Coach, I know you and I have covered a lot of Aussie in the past. I don't know if you want to comment on this further.
Penner gave a nice political answer. I vacillate back and forth because with a baby girl, I tell the producers I'm not ever playing again, so I don't have to worry about my answers. And then, on the other hand, I think, well, if I do one day, if I'm not burned too many bridges, it cost me $1 million, and that obviously, hurts. And but I think he's a great character. I think he's great for the show, and I think he should go on again because I think he'd do great.
There you go. That was a good answer there. I like that. Well, if you want to be technical, then he cost you $1 million, but Penner, you cost Aussie $1 million. So,
no, yeah, you know what? I probably did, but it was you'll won the $1 million. I mean, I tried to make sure that happened, and that was not on TV the full extent of his answer. But you'll won that by extracting from Adam the simple deal where you'll said I'll vote Penner out next or whatever if you give me your vote on the jury. And Adam agreed to that. He hated me so much that's what you're right. I cost Ozzy $1 million. Adam's hatred for me allowed him, and he was a man of his word, that he voted, he gave Yul the vote, and that was the deciding vote.
It's fascinating, kind of how these whole things are connected. And as I said, you guys haven't been on a season together, but, the coach loves you, Penner, just because you cost Aussie $1 million. He cost you, well, anyway, I'm trying to start something here.
Welcome, buddy. My pleasure.
I'm trying to start something here. Coach, I'm going to let you go watch the episodes, mate. I will quickly, first of all, say to you, thank you so much for joining this. Look, I know you don't do a whole lot of podcasts anymore, and you've come on our show heaps. We love having you on here every single time time. You are almost part of the furniture here, mate. You come on this show, you slay dragons, you do whatever you want to do, because I want you to come and play a symphony on this show one time.
How cool would that be?
Thank you. It was a pleasure. And Penner, just a little bit of time. Much love to you, brother. Thanks a lot.
Much love to you, man. I'll get you on the next one, all right?
Awesome.
There you go. Thanks, Coach, mate.
It's your baby, man. Enjoy it. Much love.
Okay, thanks.
See you later, Coach. So, Penner, we're going to continue to talk about this episode now. I have a couple more sort of specific questions related to these episodes, which I'll get to you at the end if we have the time. But
yeah, sure.
Now, we had this double episode, of course. Very interesting things happened in terms of, we had fights between couples. We had 2 vote outs that really, I suppose you could say, were predictable. They weren't exactly huge blindsides, but just, I suppose we start on those. Reed ended up voted out unanimously, but kind of, what would you take on Reed's game and how he, after Josh went and his attempt to try and crack and get Missy gone instead, and just Reed in general and how he played this season?
I mean, I think he played pretty well, and he and Josh played well. Look, I think, although I'm not smart enough or following closely enough to really track the subtleties of it, but it looks like we've got a pretty set 5 that's been in operation for weeks now. And though the editors try to make it seem like there are fissures that are going to get opened up and there are possibilities of twists in the voting, it really has not gone that way. I mean, that you get an anonymous vote like that means, the power players are dictating what's going to happen, and they tell the folks who are in a weak state, if you don't want to be voted off next, vote with us, or here's how the vote's going to go, and they all voted for him, So that's why I think they did the double episode, because, as you say, the votes were not entirely predictable, but kind of predictable.
One question which I was sort of waiting to talk about this, I kind of raised this on our other episode we did last night with the 6 that are remaining. I feel that out of these 6, we don't really have any super strong, brilliant players in terms of, they're all making mistakes. There's so many negatives to take out of all their games. I mean, there's positives to take out of their games, but we've got a very open final 6, I feel, that nearly you could argue any one of these 6 could win. I don't know if you agree with that, or if you feel that kind of the 6 that are left now from this point are, universally not playing the best game out there. But do you feel that any one of these 6 right now has a real shot at winning this game?
Well, that's what it looks like, right? I mean, that's, I don't mean to bring it back to myself, but the analogy is, at the end of Philippines, when there were 6 of us, and this also didn't get on TV, we, the 6 of us, were saying, let's just go to the end, and let's just see how it goes, and let's play a wide-open game. That's what I was saying, that's what Carter was saying, and that's what we were believing was going on, until we found out that the other 4 had created this alliance. And in fact, Lisa and Scoopin had come to me to create the same alliance, and I had said, no, let's see if we can do this. Let's keep this wide open. That was not comfortable to them. They wanted to know what the order was going to be, and of course they were smarter. That was the right thing to do. And the reason I bring that up is that was the right thing to do on their part. It was the wrong thing to do on my part. I assume that something is in the works now. They all know who the next person to go is, whether that person knows or not. Whether or not Natalie and Keith can get in the ear of either of these 2 couples, blood versus water teams, to take out the other, remains to be seen, or whether these couples are going to work together and say, look, let's go to the Final 4, assuming that we can win immunity, and let the best team win, because in some ways you stand a better chance of winning being the one singleton up there with a couple.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think. I mean, that's just my gut that says that you would somehow split the vote, and you'd be able to say, I got here without any support, and these 2 got here together.
Yeah.
And, and I think that'd be a pretty strong argument, especially when your teammate, your blood versus water ally, is on the jury to vote for you, So we'll see how it plays out. I don't know. The editors are always so good at this. I always get tricked into thinking that, what they're telling me is the story. And the truth is that, as Coach was saying, in the 72 hours, or now towards the end of the game, the 48 or 24 hours that are occurring in between these episodes, there's a lot of other stuff going on. Life is going on that just doesn't get on camera, or doesn't get on TV. It's always on camera.
Yeah. Well, it's. I mean, it's interesting you mentioned that final three situation, because it's kind of, if you had such, I suppose, a divisive pair where one was easily liked and one was hated, like you could maybe argue then, but it seems that the two remaining pairs that are left, like John and Jacqueline, you kind of have, arguments for and against either of them, and, Bela and Missy seem to be least liked out of the two pairs. But it's, you would assume that if a Keith or a Natalie, or even, one half of John or Jacqueline, or one half of Missy and Bela end up with the other pair, that, you would assume that they would be the person to walk away with the money. And maybe do you feel, if that's the case, if these couples are thinking that if you got to a final five situation, that maybe it's in the best interest for one half of the pair to win, because only one of them can win, that they say, we need to sacrifice one of us to get to the end to win the game?
It would be a gutsy move on their part to do that, to sacrifice yourself. And the argument against that is, we could make more money, we could come in second and third, and the counter argument, counter to what I just pitched, because this is what they would have to say in the final jury, is we protected each other.
Yeah.
Okay, we played such a good game that we both made it here. And yes, John would argue he's the one who should win because he found two idols or whatever, but she could argue, no, I'm the one who pulled his strings, and every time he came off of exile, I'm the one who told him how we were going to, I kept the balls in the air. Now, whether they would actually go toe-to-toe or mano-a-mano against each other in the final tribal, that might be interesting.
Yeah.
Would Missy and Baylor... I just can't see either of them winning this game. I don't think they're getting the edit. I don't think they've played the game to win. Could Keith win? Who would Keith beat?
Well,
he could beat Baylor and Jackie. If they all got to the end, maybe?
It's fascinating with Keith, because about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was like, there's no way in hell Keith is winning this game. I will run down the street like he's useless. But I've completely turned around, because I think there was a quote that Jeff Probst said before this season. He said, this season has an unusual winner. And that's kind of stuck in my head this whole season. And the thing with Keith that I think you could argue for, out of all the people out there, if you read the edit, he's getting a very strong edit. Might not necessarily be super strategy edit, but he's always there. He seems to be well liked. If he was to end up next to a John or a Jacqueline and a Missy and Baylor, are they so disliked as a couple that he goes through for the win? He's strong in challenges. He could argue that. I don't know. And I mean, of course, again, really, it all comes down to the fact that if you get the votes at the end and you're well liked, you win. But I don't know. It's interesting how I seem to now think Keith can win, whereas 2 weeks ago I didn't think he had a chance in hell.
Well, I mean, just in this conversation, my thinking as I'm listening to what you're saying, of course, you're making a lot of sense. I hadn't realized that Probst had said that. That could be Natalie also.
Yeah, true.
Honestly.
True.
But you're right. I mean, he hasn't pissed off people, right? He could get the jury votes, and we don't know what the jury thinks of the couples. Do you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really have a sense whether you knew that people hated my guts, right?
Yeah.
At least in the Cook Islands,
yeah.
And I wasn't going to get any votes. I was going to get anti-votes. It was going to be anybody but me. The same way that what's her name beat Russell Hance.
Yeah.
It's like I don't remember her name.
Natalie.
She hasn't been back to play, but she got $1 million because she was not him. Keith, maybe Keith could win, but he's got to get to the end, and this is what we're talking about. How do you pry these two couples out of the game? How do you split at least one of them, or not only split one, but eliminate both players from one potentially?
Yeah.
And so it is interesting. Coach is right, and I think that's why they had this double episode. Let's get past this essentially boring stuff to get to this potentially interesting situation. I think if we have a Final Four with these two couples, which would make sense to me, though it goes against what you're saying Probst has laid out, which is that there's a surprising winner or an unusual winner. I guess they don't go together, all the four of them. I mean, because none of them, unless Baylor effing wins or Missy wins, then yeah, that would be unusual as hell.
The only way I could see sort of out of saying like Jacqueline as an unusual was that very early on she was like very, very invisible. Like she was bottom and you just never saw her at all. But I mean, you can't really say that's unusual because I mean, going back to you saying Natalie who beat Russell, she had like I think 15 confessionals for the entire fucking season. Like I mean, you know, you probably I think got more confessionals in an episode of one of your seasons than she did the entire season. So, like you know,
wow.
I mean, yeah, you got Russell Hanson that season, but you know, whatever. One interesting thing that I think I don't know how you would feel about this. I don't know if I've ever gotten your thoughts on what's better, a Final 2 or a Final 3, but I feel that a Blood vs. Water season almost needs a Final 2 just for that couple thing. Because, I mean, you think back to All-Stars, right? You have Rob and Amber. You know, I mean, they weren't a couple beforehand, but they were a couple at the end of it. If you had that as a Final 3, if Jenna Lewis was at that final tribal council, Jenna Lewis is going to win that season. Like, they would have voted for her over Rob and Amber any day of the week. So, imagine if you have this situation here, have it at Final 2, you've got John and Jacqueline at the Final 2, you have to vote for one of them, you know what I mean? Like, do you feel that would work on a season like this as opposed to a Final 3?
No, not really, because who cares? I mean, to me, it's like if that couple gets to the end, okay, so who cares? They're going to split the money anyway, and the couple got there together. I mean, what was fascinating about the Rob and Amber story is that they seem to, whether it's true or not, I don't know, fall in love over the course of the season or come together, and it became, you know, he was going to watch out for her, and it was their dynamic that became interesting. You know, seeing the two of them, okay, I'll vote for, you know, John, I'll vote for Jacqueline. Oh, you won, well, so you didn't, you know, you shake each other's hands. It's not like Yul and Ozzy going against each other. I think they have to do a Final 3 because they're going to, otherwise I think it would be boring. You know, even if Missy and Baylor each, you know, they'd split the money. You know they would. Even if they can't, they would anyway.
Yeah, true. Good point. I mean, what are you a fan of? Final 3, Final 2? I don't know if I've ever gotten your answer on that.
I don't know. Final 3 or 5. I guess I've only played on a Final 3 season, so I guess I'm a fan of Final 3 because that's what I know. I mean, watching when was the last time they had a Final 2?
They won last season in Cagayan, of course. But Micronesia was Final 2, but you weren't on the jury that season, of course. So
Micronesia was Final 2. Oh, yeah, I was out of there. Who the hell went to the final?
Manda and Parvati. Parvati won your... Did you remember Parvati?
Oh, Parvati, of course she did. She destroyed. And rightly so. She played in... No, that was a Final... Oh, it was Amanda and Parvati.
No, it was Final 2 because Sari, everybody says...
Right, Sari would have...
Yeah, Sari would have won that surely if it was Final 3, so...
Yeah.
Anyway.
Sorry, but my brain is no, see, I told you it's taken an emotional, physical toll on me.
We've got the evidence from the question right there.
Yeah.
I'd love to get your thoughts on, I mean, we talked about Reed's vote. Alex's vote, Natalie switched up, so she's gone against John, Jacqueline and Missy to vote out Alec. Do you agree with what she did? Was this the right move for Natalie? Was it a bad move for Natalie? What was your thoughts on what she did?
Well, if she hadn't voted out Alec, who was going to go? I mean, you know, she, for all we know, she hated his guts. I mean, there's always stuff going on out there that you just don't know. You know, it didn't seem to me to be such a big deal because they still want to work with Natalie. You know, so obviously there was some talk about it. I mean, this was not some massive betrayal that shook up the entire game. You know, he was a pazzo, and then they probably, you know, thought he was a pain in the ass to have around camp. That's often what happens. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like, let's just get this asshole out of the camp already. You know, does it really matter because we just don't like this guy? He's a fool, you know. I don't know what he was doing. He always came across as a bit of a fool to me, but I don't know the dynamic that was happening. Did you think it shook up the game particularly?
I don't think it shook up the game. I don't think she made the right move personally because I think she'd have taken out Keith she's still got kind of she's still in the majority, and Alec, I think Alec wasn't going to win. I don't think Alec would have gotten a vote. Alec would have been a very easy person to beat. But my viewpoint of it is that she's potentially pissed off John and Jacqueline enough that, you know, Missy is with John. She's got Baylor and Keith. Best case scenario to me, she's got 3-3, because I don't see Missy siding with Baylor. I think Baylor would more likely switch to Missy, because I think what we've seen, it seems as Baylor does just whatever Mummy tells her to do. So I don't know. Like, to me, best case scenario 3-3, it goes to Rox. But I mean, I could be wrong. Like, John and Jacqueline could just get over it and like, oh, whatever, Natalie. You know, we'll just get rid of Keith next. I don't know. So I just think.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you know, she might have just had a deal with Keith.
Yeah.
You know, and his son, I don't know, and they didn't know that John had I don't remember, you know, I'm sorry, I don't, you know, the intricacies of the episode have, if I can't remember Parvati and Amanda, then you can forgive me for not remembering what the hell John did the last episode, but she may have had a side deal with Keith. That may be her lifeline. You know, she's going to need to pull him in if she's going to have any chance of just not being number 5. You know, I guess she's on the line now, and she's going to be pitching either to the two couples. Get rid of him. He's a beast. He doesn't have he's a challenge monster. He's a lovable guy, and he doesn't have an idol. And we got to get rid of him now. You know, you can't. You guys will beat me. Just take me one more step. And in fact, she's laying the groundwork. I assume the only way that she can really go far enough is to get Keith and John and Jacqueline to work with her.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, that's a possibility too. Have you been impressed with Natalie overall this season? I mean, we obviously saw her sister get voted out first, so the twinnies in general, we didn't ever get this golden opportunity to see them working together on Survivor. But, I mean, Natalie overall, because she's got a very strong fan base out there, and I got a lot of people going off at me for saying she made bad moves.
Well, I like her. She's my pick right now. I mean, she's the person that I'm rooting for. I think she's the most interesting player out there, although Keith has, you know, you're right, he hasn't pissed anybody off, and he's kind of in, you know, they love these endearing rednecks, right? But he's no fool. I mean, the guy's a fireman, and he's obviously capable, and but I do like Natalie. She's the one that I'm pulling for now. I never watched The Amazing Race, so I didn't know what these twinsy thing is, so that didn't mean anything to me. I was much more, you know, aware of the fact that the first person voted out, seemingly yet again, was a black woman. You know, and here she is coming on strong all the way to the end. You know, she's terrific. I think she's pretty and smart and strategic and ballsy, and she's great. I like watching her.
I just want to clarify to all the Natalie fans out there that just because I say I'm the same as Penner, I do love Natalie, and if I had the power to say right now who I want to win, I would choose Natalie, because I'm a big fan of hers. I never saw her in The Amazing Race either, but she's entertaining. And it's also the diversity factor too, the fact that, you know, we've kind of got this, you know, I mean, they're obviously of Sri Lankan heritage, and we've never really had someone of that, you know, nationality / race on the show before. So it's, I don't know, it adds another element that even after 29 seasons, we've still got these extra characters, so to speak, that we haven't seen on the show.
Yeah. And, yeah, I mean, so it's a very white show, it's a white network, and it's a white thing. I don't know what to say about it. It always boggles my mind, but that's how they want to put it together, and that's what it's all about.
That's how it is, exactly. A couple of things I want to touch on with, particularly the challenges. I'd love to get your thoughts on, in the first episode we saw this whole, you know, chopping of the rope, the crushing of the skulls, but basically we got down to this final 5 and it didn't turn into a challenge anymore. It turned into Jeff saying, oh, so you're rigging the challenge for Missy to win? Well, Missy, you win. I mean, surely that's ridiculous. Surely they should just let him play out for something. I mean, just letting him give up a challenge and decide who wins?
I thought it was very bizarre. I mean, what was going on? I had no idea. I was like, oh, but this season it's like, you know what? I'm going to give my win to this person. I'm not going to go. I'm going to do this now. Here, can she take it for me? You can take it for me. You know, and I guess that's interesting strategy. It never seems to work out. I just sort of sit here and say, like, well, what was that about? I mean, there must have been something else going on. It's just too boring to watch. Why do you think he did it? Do you have any insight why he did it?
I don't. To be honest with you, I've gotten a vibe, and I'm reading a lot of comments out there that Probst just doesn't like these people. So maybe Probst is just getting sick of it and just like, oh, do whatever you want as long as your season's finished with. Like, you just kind of get this vibe from the way Probst has been reacting this season that he's doing this because he just doesn't like them. I don't know if you get that vibe or not.
Well, I don't think he does particularly like them. They're not particularly engaging, with him. Nobody's talking to him at all, and he's trying to get something. I think Coach made the really, really salient point about how Probst wants to, this is, how People magazine, this is how old I am. There used to be a part in Time magazine that was a page, it was called The People. It was like the little gossip column in Time magazine. And it was so popular they made a whole magazine out of it, which is People magazine,
Yeah.
So it's like the family visit. Everybody loves that. That's 20 minutes in episode, the 14th episode or something. Let's do an entire season of the family visit, I think, was the notion. And, it's given them some solid stuff, and it's given them some boring stuff, I guess, as with most seasons that happens. Was it a good idea? I guess. But right now, why he would pull that with Missy and just say, I'm bored of this is boring. I think it was just a stupid challenge, actually. Answer a question about who does streaks and tips or whatever the hell the question was, and all of a sudden, bing, bang, boom. Oh, yeah, you still get to cut down the ropes, and it's going to go like that. But why not just let it play out? Who knows? Production said it's going to start raining, or Probst had an ingrown nail and he had to get to medical. I have no idea.
The interesting aspect of that challenge you've seen in the past is not so much of, who's got a twin brother, who's that. It's usually, who is the biggest poser and who do you think is coasting in this game? And you know what I mean? Like, they have those kind of real personal questions.
Yeah, let's get some snarky shit going, not just, who... how well did you listen around the campfire to find out who's got a nail salon?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he was pissed off because his producers gave him some incredibly boring questions to ask. I don't know.
Maybe he's what the fuck are these questions?
This is crap, guys. What are we doing here? I mean, it kind of was,
Yeah. I don't think we've had a challenge where it's like personalized, as in like, who's your twin, who's this. I don't think we've had that since like Marquesas, like it's, season 4. Like usually we have those like snarky ones that, it's going to stir the pot. And I mean, how is Jeremy having a twin brother going to stir the pot?
Well, no, but you're right, and you're hitting the nail on the head. It wasn't about that. It was like, okay, if you get it right, you get to. We're going to see where everyone stands in the game, as opposed to, I think you're absolutely right. They should have had, who is the biggest poser on the beach?
Yep.
Who isn't as smart as they think they are? I don't know what they would ask, but something, and all of a sudden, if you get a consensus, or if people are voting politically, I appreciate that Coach Ace thinks that I have a chance of playing again, which I find hard to believe, but that I'm giving political answers. The truth is that's the truth of how I feel about Ozzy. He didn't cost me $1 million. I'll always tell you exactly how I feel.
We know. That's why we get you here, Penner. That's why, any podcast gets Jonathan Penner on.
Well, yeah, they should have had much snarkier stuff.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
It's fascinating. And when it comes to immunity challenges now, there's just this trend of let's stand still and hold something for as long as we can.
What the hell, man? I was
this.
like, didn't we just have this Jesus Christ? And that was there. That was Alex. I feel like Jesus Christ. Here he's wearing his crucifix and saying he feels like Jesus Christ. But and then last week it was like, well, turn around and do the same thing, but with a ball.
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know.
Getting lazy.
They're running out of money. They're running out of locations. They're running out of, I don't know what they're running
I mean, I read somewhere that Probst said that next week we're going to see a challenge created by a 13-year-old fan, and I don't think we've had a fan-created challenge since Pearl Islands or something like that, but like, it's kind of, I've always enjoyed the individual part of the game because some of these challenges you get, I mean, thinking back to your, Cook Islands, the individual challenges that we had back then, I mean, they were epic, they were great. Like, I'm not a fan of Cook Islands, but the challenges were at least great. And like, you think of, now, like, yeah.
Whoa.
I've touched a nerve.
No, hold on. Now, you're talking about stirring the pot. I'm not a fan of cook-ons. Well, why not? I mean, I don't care, but why aren't you?
Well, it's kind of as I alluded to before, like, I think a lot of the more interesting people went early, and...
Like who? Who did you feel?
I look, not just because he's a friend of this show. I enjoyed Billy. We didn't get to see enough Billy. Let's be honest. We love Billy.
Yeah, I wish he'd stayed in longer. But he got shafted. He's the one who should fucking hate Ozzy. Ozzy shafted him bad.
Threw a challenge to get rid of him. Come on.
He did. I mean, come on.
Cowboy. How can you not love Cowboy?
Cowboy's a pain in the ass. I mean, I like look, if Cowboy's a fan of the show and he's listening, hi, Cowboy. How are you, buddy? But Cowboy was nuts out there. He was a genuinely crazy person out there.
I loved this next person I'm about to say, and I also particularly love the way you said her name, Flicker.
Flicker, yeah. Flicker was okay. Flicker was in over her head. She, was not a fan of the game, but she was game for anything. And she went out there and tried to give it her all. She really was. And when she realized what a feast of snakes it was, she really didn't want to have any part of it. She really lost her appetite. I think Cowboy too. It's like, oh, let's just have a game and let's have an experience and let's have some fun. And I tried to tell her, and not that I'm so brilliant, but I said, like, people are fucking playing a game out here. You got to understand, there's some bad shit going on right now, right around you. And she's like, ooh, I don't want to be a part of that. And she was gone quickly.
It's just kind of like, I always remember with Cook Islands that I enjoyed it it's one of these seasons that on a rewatch soured incredibly quickly. I don't know if it kind of ruins on a first watch, the R2-4 story is great because it's, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. Hey, they've succeeded and they're the final four. I mean, when you know it's going to happen, it's kind of, you're picking it together differently. And I don't know, like, I hate it always seems to happen. People call me a suck-up Penner, and it always seems to happen when I've got somebody on the show who I was a fan of on the season that I'm going to fucking say this to. But, like, I enjoyed your story arc. I enjoyed you as a character and a player on the show. So, like, things that happened to you were so negative and the way you were treated that I'm going to take that, like, leave Penner alone. So... Yeah. It's... No.
Listen, I respect your opinion and whatever you're saying or thinking. I don't care. I'm just curious. You can't just drop. I didn't like the season. That's a little bit of a bombshell. I understand what you're saying. It's very interesting, actually.
Yeah, well, I will just say I just rewatched Philippines. I'd only watched it for the second time, actually, and Philippines is a season which I enjoyed when it was on, and I enjoyed a lot when I rewatched it. Just finished watching Caramoan. It was like meh when I watched it, and it's terrible on a rewatch. So,
really,
yes. So I'm about to actually start rewatching the First Blood, First Water. So there you go. It's kind of interesting watching these for a second time. I mean, do you go back and watch your seasons? Have you watched your seasons since you've been on them at all?
No. Have I? Yeah, I want to say I have. But I don't think I have.
Do you think it's something that, like, you would be keen to do when you got the time one day, or one day sit with the grandkids and be like, this is what granddad did 20 years ago?
I'm sure I would, and I'd probably enjoy it very, very much. It's interesting. I don't know how interesting it is, but I honestly have an apprehension about watching them again because either, I'm going to see, I don't know, it's hard to watch yourself as a younger person. You made mistakes. Yes, you did well, but then you screwed up. The problem with the show Survivor is, unless you win, it's all about your victories and your mistakes. Maybe a little bit sort of who you are. I got to fish. You got to see me fishing on the Cook Islands, or you got to see me injured or struggling with my injury. But it really is, you have your ups and your downs glaringly thrown out there, and the truth is that over the course of 33 days, some odd days, there were a lot of mistakes made and a lot of wonderful things that are what I remember most.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
And watching the show again, yeah, it's exciting, but I guess I almost rather live with my own memories of it than how it was cut together.
It's a very good way of looking at it, actually. It's a very good way indeed. I'll get what I'm going to do here, Penner. I'll get to a couple of these lists of questions that we didn't get to, and I'll close it off with our prediction ones. And just quickly scrolling through. Thank you. First of all, I will say thank you to everybody who sent these listener questions in. We always appreciate people taking the time to do this. Lisa Chanana says,
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa. Last night we saw Natalie's plan to blindside John evaporate because he won the immunity challenge. Instead of voting out Alec, do you think she should have rallied the troops and take out Jacqueline? What would you have done?
Should she have voted out Jacqueline? If she could have, she probably should have at that point, right? You know, why she didn't? Obviously, she and Jacqueline have a better relationship. I guess, you know, what the bee in her bonnet is about John, I don't know. You know, or if that's just a TV manufactured thing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That it's like, I got to get rid of John. Well, you know, why?
Well, she mentioned that it was revenge for Jeremy. That's the only thing I got from what she said, so...
Yeah, but...
don't know if that's true or not.
Revenge for Jeremy, you know, I guess. You know, you can't live in the past. You got to live in the present and the future in this game, man.
Yeah.
You know, and that may be the issue. She was thinking too much about, I'm going to get revenge, instead of what's the best move that I can make. Because had she taken... Well, what would have happened if she'd taken Jackie out? John would have been on the warpath. But there was only so much he could do because everyone else would have voted for Jackie. So, yes, I think it would have been a better move. I think it would have been.
I agree. I definitely, like, she said that quote, like, oh, you know, John's gone, I don't have a plan B. I was like, well, isn't plan B take out Jacqueline?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. Thanks, Lisa.
That's the thing. There's always, thanks, Lisa. Good question, and you're right. It would have been a better
Yes. Jonathan Horta says... Jonathan Penner, you're my favourite ever. I'll just start with that.
Because we have the same first name. It's the best name.
It is. Well, second after Ben, of course.
No, that's not right. Best. 2 against 1.
True. I'm outnumbered. Jonathan says, now at this point, who is in the driver's seat, Natalie or John?
I guess John. I mean, unless Natalie really has... John and I have to assume, as we said a minute ago, either she's got now John and Jackie to work with, although we're saying she's trying to get rid of John. We don't believe she can get Baylor and Missy, but only because, and this is off of what you just said, do we really believe that Missy is going to take out John? Maybe eventually, maybe the time has come. Now I'm reversing myself. I think that if Natalie is able to get into or use Keith, which would be even more genius, to get into Missy and Baylor's ear and say, guys, you cannot beat John and Jackie. John will win this game if he's sitting in the final 3. Whether that's true or not, that's what has to be said, right?
Yeah.
Let's get rid of them one at a time. Whoever doesn't win immunity, the other one goes. If neither one wins immunity, it's John next. 4 of us will go to the final, and then you guys, Missy and Baylor, decide who's going to be in your final 3. Both Natalie and Keith will be working them to say it's going to be us in the final 3. In the final 3, isn't that something that Natalie has already laid down?
I think so. Yeah,
didn't she take them on?
Yeah, so she said Missy Baylor final 3. Yeah, she said that. So,
okay,
yeah.
So you know what? Yeah, I'm going to say Natalie because I want Natalie to win.
Yeah.
So whether it's true or not, I say Natalie. Jonathan, great minds. Thank you for helping sway my thinking.
Good job, Jonathan. Again, the Jonathans unite. Now, Oslet Nick Chester, he asked a question before, but he's got 2 little bits here for you here, Penner. The first one, he says, ask which player this season do you think talks the most bollocks?
That dipshit brother of Alex. What was his
Drew.
name? Drew?
Yes.
Yeah, Drew talks a lot of bollocks.
Yes.
And I'm glad I don't have to listen to it anymore, although Alec was a close second, but Drew was really too much.
Now, Nick then adds, and I'm looking forward to this part of his question, ask if you will just abuse him, because Nick would find that funny.
If I would abuse you, you fucking fool.
Not me, Nick. You can abuse me too. Like, you can abuse both of us.
That's what I'm calling. I wouldn't call you a fool. No, Nick. Who the hell asks for abuse? What are you, like a masochist or something? Where are you from?
He's from New Zealand. I know that for a fact.
Oh, he's a fucking sheep fucker.
Yes. Oh, right? An American can say that joke.
Feel good, Nick?
I love the fact that there's just this, that's such an Australian thing to say to a New Zealander. Good job, Penner. Good job.
Oh, is that right? Well, because it's true.
It is very true. Like,
you hobbit screwing little fucking lamb butcher. Go ahead.
Oh, best answer ever on this show.
Oh, well, thanks, Nick, for setting me up, buddy.
Oh, look, I don't even think I can top that. There's one here. Sean Onyx Windley. First of all, asked you.
Whoa. Sean Onyx Windley?
Yes, there's 3 names here. Sean Onyx Windley.
Awesome.
Great name. First of all,
a made-up name.
Yes,
Go ahead.
He's scared to say his real name. He says, Penner, do you know that you are his favourite survivor ever?
I didn't know, Sean, and you are my favorite made-up named Onyx Windley ever.
That's a compliment, Sean. Take it. And he asks 2 things. First of all, can you re-say your famous quote, on one side, I'm a betraying bastard, and on the other side, I'm a betraying bastard?
On one side, I'm a betraying bastard. You got to say it with the American accent.
Bastard, yes.
Yeah, bastard. On the other side, I'm a fucking betraying bastard, which is, I'm sure, what I would have said, but they either bleeped it out or said, can you say that again without fucking? So,
yes, bastard.
Bastard. You an asshole. That's the best American swear.
Asshole.
Asshole.
Asshole. Not asshole.
No. You don't sound like Harvey Firestein. You say asshole.
Asshole.
Where's he? Yes, asshole. It's a great thing to say if you're American.
Yes, we just say asshole and we sound too British.
Yeah, that's too silly.
Yes. Now he also asks, will you ever do more movies like Down Periscope?
No.
I haven't seen that movie in ages.
I mean, would I? Yeah, but they're not going to. First off, they don't make movies like Down Periscope anymore. I don't know if that's good or bad. Would I? Sure, I would do it if they asked me to. I mean, we're making movies now. But you know what? I like writing and producing movies more than acting in movies. It's very stressful to act. I mean, the job of doing the other thing is stressful, but it's much more fun. You have a lot more control, and you don't have to worry about your looking good and going to the gym all the time. And being an actor was a lot of fun. I loved being an actor, and I don't miss being an actor at all. I never think about it. That's the God's honest truth.
There you go. One clip. I mean, I've never. You might all of a sudden gasp in amazement, just like when I said about Cook Islands before. I've never been a Seinfeld fan, Penner, but I've seen the clip of you on Seinfeld. So that's one that goes around the internet quite a lot. So the Survivor fans watch that one a lot. When I think you get hit by a
like
bus or something, don't you?
Plague. What do you mean? Well. Yeah, I mean, I watched it because Jason was on it, but I wasn't a religious Seinfeld fan either. Thanks, I'm glad you watched it. That was a fun thing to do. That was an insane week. Yeah, so I mean, doing it is fun. I love acting, but I don't miss it at all. It's a strange way to make a living, and luckily, I mean, and I do mean that, luckily, I have been able to be somewhat successful as a writer and a producer, and my time and my hours are my own. I don't have to walk around with my hat in my hand auditioning and trying to get to be the cop or the dad or the boyfriend or God forbid carry a movie or a TV show on my own. I guess had it worked out differently, I would have loved to have continued to act, but I stopped acting on my own volition.
There you go. I still think to this day you are the only Survivor contestant who has been nominated for Academy Award. I don't know if you can correct me on that, but I think you are the only one.
As far as I know.
Yeah, well, so far,
I mean
who knows? Who could go into acting? Colby's still acting. He might get nominated.
Well, no, but I wasn't nominated.
I know, it wasn't for acting. No, it wasn't. It was for, no, that's true.
Yeah.
Cochrane's writing.
I acted. Yeah, Cochrane's writing. He just got...
He got fired, but we won't mention that. Well, no, he didn't get fired. The show got cancelled. Sorry, yes.
Yeah. They loved him. Yeah, and rightly so. And hopefully there will be another Oscar nominee, or even, wouldn't it be great, an Oscar winner playing Survivor? I'm sure Probst would love that. What happened to Probst's movie? Didn't he direct a movie?
I think so. At least he was working on one. I don't know what happened to that. That's a good point. He wrote some books, didn't he? I think so. So he could be a writer.
Yes, but like, kids on Survivor Island. I mean, I guess that's a nice thing. That's cool, but that's not what I'm talking about. He made a movie. I thought he did. Does anybody out there know?
Somebody let us know.
Would you let Ben know or post it sometime?
Jeff listens.
All
to
right,
the
next
show
question.
All right, well,
well,
I think we're done for the listener one. So I'll thank everybody who sent them in. What we do, close it out with our
thank you guys.
Prediction. Thank you everybody. We got a great bunch of questions in, so we always appreciate it. survivorroz@hotmail.com to send those in, or of course follow us on social media. But we wrap it up with our final prediction questions. Now, you were on this show doing a recap back a year ago, essentially, Blood vs. Water. Funny, you were on a year ago doing episode 12 of Blood vs. Water, and here we are, episode 11 and 12 of Blood vs. Water 2. It's fate, Penner. I didn't even realise that until just then.
Wow. Did my predictions come true?
Well, this is what I'm looking at. You said, well, it's kind of. I'm going to say kind of, because your tip to win was Monica and your dark horse was Tyson. So if you flip them around, Monica came second, Tyson won. So I'd pay that as...
pretty close.
Yeah, pretty close. You said next to go would be... Hayden would be voted out, which from memory I think he was next, and Tina would go from Redemption Island, but she of course came back into the game, so half there, so not too bad. So you got close, but all right, you've got a good run here in terms of the final six. Who is your tip to win Survivor San Juan del Sur?
Because I like her, I'm going to go with Natalie. Although based on this conversation, I'll hedge my bet and say it could be Keith, but I like Natalie to win.
So, well, having said that about Keith, would you like me to mark down Keith as your dark horse?
Yeah, dark horse Keith.
There you go. All right, who is next to go? Who'll be voted out next week?
John.
Ooh, big play. That'll be fascinating to watch. Now, this one can be answered, but it doesn't necessarily have to be answered, as in you can say that neither of the couples will do this. Out of the two couples that are remaining in this game, do you think either of them will turn against each other, and if so, who will it be?
I think that what's going to happen is, if the scenario I've just laid out plays out, and John is next, and then Jackie, one of the two is going to have to go.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be true? It's tough, because I believe both Keith and Natalie would want to sit with Baylor, so I'm going to say no.
No.
And Missy. I'm going to say no.
No. Done. All right. Now, the final question for you, Jonathan Penner. Just to... actually, no, I'll tell you who you answered last season. I'll give you the question first. So, this question, out of anybody, not necessarily who's left in the game, anybody on this season, out of all the 18 people who played this season, who do you feel played most similar to how you played on any or all of your seasons? And just before you answer, I will say, last time you were on, you said you were a combination between Tyson and Hayden.
Who's playing most similarly to how I played? I guess Natalie.
Natalie?
If anybody. Yeah, but I mean, I don't have a twin. That's Sri Lankan. Obviously not as in touch with my female side as she is. But yeah, I mean, I'm just pulling that out of my ass, obviously. Who do you think?
Ooh.
My asshole.
Well, gee, that's a good question. Let's.
I mean, it's sort of a question that, like, you got to ask, but not because it's actually there is somebody out there that's, playing a game resonant of my game, or that my game resembles their game. I can't imagine there's anyone out there saying, like, I'm going to play like Jonathan Penner. It'd be silly, because they wouldn't go so far. But
they might want to mutiny. They might want to hurt their knee.
Yeah, I mean, what a... I mean, listen, I had a fantastic time out there. As I say, those are my great memories of the fun that I had, and winning that individual immunity and playing the idol, when I needed to, things like that. That's the fun. But the, mistakes, and, they never had us sleeping in the caves. I mean, they had some awful shit that happened to us that never makes it on TV. That's the stuff that I wish we could get the fans to understand is that there's so much other stuff that happens on a day-to-day basis that's weird and hard. Once upon a time, Survivor was just like, imagine if you were on a desert island for 39 or 42 days. What would that be like? And we've lost all that to the vagaries and now the, additions to the game. But the truth is that for the folks that are out there, the challenges and the tribals are just a small part, an integral part, a very important part, but just a small part of your daily or weekly life.
Yeah.
And it's the life itself that really is the more important stuff that's going on out there, I think.
The day that perhaps you're allowed to write books about your time on Survivor, if Mark Burnett ever, that contract party's ever released and you're allowed to, we'll have an influx of all these former contestants writing books. Then
I won't be one of them.
You won't be one of them, but maybe we'll read Coach's book or something like that.
That is entirely possible.
Yes.
I'd write something if anybody was interested, but I can't see that happening.
It'd be fascinating if one day it was allowed. Would I read it? Is that what you're about to ask me? Did I?
No, maybe I would like to see an oral history of Survivor. There's certainly a book or books to be had about Survivor, the history of Survivor. We're sitting here talking, and it's like, there are no producers of color, at least the times that I played out there. There's all these things, these other issues on Survivor and the culture of Survivor that are fascinating. The culture of CBS, the culture of how this thing is put together, is all very, very interesting. I think, from a production standpoint. The first time I played, Burnett was spending more time down there. He may be back down there now, but he came down the night before we started the game, and he wanted to talk to each of us individually about this thing and say, I'll never forget it. He said, this was when he was talking to us as a group, actually. He said something like, you guys don't know what an opportunity this is, and not just to be on TV. We are spending millions and millions of dollars so that you can live this way for up to 39 days. And I urge you to take in every sunset, take in every sunrise, drink this in, because before you know it, and for one of you it's going to be in 3 days' time this is going to be done. And before you know it, this will be over, and all you will want is to get back out here.
Yeah.
So enjoy it while you've got it. And that's what I mean when I say it's the stuff of the life living on a beach, in a jungle, in the water like that.
Yeah.
That is what I really remember most fondly.
And as you mentioned like earlier about like that first time, you can never replicate that. You and Coach are lucky enough to play 3 times, but by the third time you're very aware of everything, aren't you? Whereas that first time, everything's new, and it's just it's incredible. That's something that you would never experience ever again, like as Mark obviously told you.
Yeah, it really is incredible. To get an opportunity to. I don't know how much time you have if you want to talk about this, but certainly like fishing. You say you're on a tropical reef that the rest of the time is a protected park, and rightly so. And you are literally free to swim anywhere, to hunt anything, to eat what you catch, to live like a fucking caveman. And when you get back to camp, there are no phones, there is no computer, there is no Mai Tai. It's not like, because we can all go on vacation somewhere. I'm sure you can go to the Gold Coast or wherever it is that you would go and scuba and whatever. And then you say, wow, that was incredible. And then you jump in the pool, you take a shower, and you get in your bed, Mm-hmm. And to really have that incredibly immersive experience was very, very profound for me, and I really took it in, and every time I played it, I couldn't wait to get back out there just to get some of that.
Yeah.
Not so much to fucking prove myself, running and jumping and doing puzzles. That's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, but that's true. That's stuff that you can't do otherwise. You don't get to playing these crazy challenges in your day-to-day life either. And I tried to take that in. I know, I just tried to take it all in and just have as much fun with it as I could, that's all.
One thing that I think what we'll do with you, Penner, is that we had an episode last year which has proven to be one of our very popular episodes. We called it the Random Secrets episode, where basically on that episode we actually got Billy, Kathy Sleckman from Micronesia, and Kobe from Palau. And it was it wasn't an episode where we sat down and talked about like how you played Survivor. It was the things that I guess a fan of the show, a non-fan of the show would ask, like, you know, how do you go to the toilet? Like, how do you do this? And you could talk about the subtleties of fishing, and like we learnt so much from these, like, you know, behind the scenes things that are happening. You know, I mean, we learnt way too much about Billy and his pubic hair, and
oh, I didn't hear that episode. I'm glad.
Kathy Sleckman sleeping on a bag of tampons. Like, I mean, the little things that you know, they're not talked about on these episodes. Like, and like we've always said we're going to do another one. We're going to get a bunch of different people on and for a perspective. But I think, look, if you're interested for something like that, that's something we'll get you on in the future for. Because I think there's this insight kind of, as you're saying, that, you know, never gets told really outside of this strategy did this and this is a mistake this person made. And as a fan, I love hearing these stories, and you know, I know a lot of our listeners love hearing those. So I think we should get you on for that in the future.
Be happy to, of course. Just let me know when you want to do that.
Absolutely. Well, we'll think about that in a year, no doubt. But I will say right now, Jonathan Penner, it's always a pleasure having you on this show, no matter what it is for. Appreciate your time here today, and best of luck for everything that comes your way for the rest of the year. Merry Christmas. Well, sorry for your case. Happy Hanukkah, of course, I should say.
Happy Hanukkah. Thank you, and Merry Christmas to all of you, and thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here talking to you, Ben, and thanks so much for the questions, everybody. And it was a treat to get to be on with Coach. I haven't talked to him in too long. So thanks a lot, man.
And there you go. Jonathan Penner and, of course, Benjamin Coach Wade, providing you all the insight and some very fascinating conversation, as you would expect from both gentlemen, in a very fun episode. Thanks to everyone who sent those questions in. We've got some great questions this week, and we're looking forward to some great questions throughout the rest of the season. Because I tell you right now, we've got 2 more episode recaps to come, because there's only 2 more episodes of Survivor. And I'm going to tease you. I'm going to tease you, particularly for the finale. I don't want to tease you too much for next week, because I'll tell you who's on next week. But for the finale, I will say that you will be sending in lots of listener questions for this one. I will make sure I post it a little bit earlier than I usually do. There is a very strong pissability apparently, very strong possibility that it actually will be a 3-way conversation to talk about the finale. We're just trying to finalise some logistics with a couple of the people. But just to tease you a little bit with this, if it all goes ahead and if we get it all locked in and planned, it will be a mini reunion as sorts. So it will be 3 people. If everything falls into alignment, it will be 3 people from the one season. And can I just point out that it will be 2 people from the final tribal council, who I believe, now I'm going to be corrected, no doubt, on this episode, if all goes ahead, I do believe might not have talked a whole lot since their final tribal council of that season. So, look, that's all I'm going to give you right now. Speculate. Send us in your tweets. Send us in your Facebook messages. Let us know who you think it will be. Look, I'll just read them and smile and maybe go, haha, you're not even close. But we'll keep an eye on that, and hopefully it will all go ahead. But next week, our penultimate recap is another sort of interesting one, which kind of came about under interesting methods. Now, it's with 2 people who never played on the same season with each other. They have 7 seasons separating them. They've only each played once. However, they have a very strong connection. Now, of course, last season we spent all of season 28 getting people on to do recaps who had never done recaps with us before. One of those people who did a recap with us was Marty from Nicaragua. Now, Marty did a great episode recap, and we spoke a lot about Spencer. Now, Spencer went into Cagayan talking a lot about the fact that he modelled and admired Marty. So Marty, of course, was very chuffed. They were looking forward to exchanging and getting to know each other and all this sort of stuff when it came to the post-season. They've done that. They've become friends, and I thought, why not get Marty and Spencer on together? Spencer, and we're going to do that next week. So next week's recap will be from Marty Piombo from Nicaragua and Spencer Bledsoe from Cagayan. It's taken us to episode 13 to get someone from the season before this. We generally always like to get at least one or a couple of people from the previous season to the one that we're talking about on, and that will be next week with Spencer coming on to chat about that. So again, more details throughout the week. Always take this opportunity to quickly do some plugging for other elements of Survivor Oz. Our exit interviews with Reed and Alec will be done next Wednesday. As always, get your listener questions in early if you wish to jump ahead of the queue. Our Oztopsy from last night, a great one, our longest one we've ever done, but a very fascinating and insightful one, a funny one too, as always. That is available online for you to download and listen to right now. Reminding you too that all of our episodes that we do from now on will automatically go onto YouTube as well. So if for any reason you want to listen to them via YouTube, you can do that as well. And we're going to probably not upload all our old episodes because I don't know if we've quite got the time to do that. But we're at least going to probably go back and get some of our biggest interviews that we've ever done. So, your Gregs, your Bryans, your Boston Robs, things like that. We'll go back and at least upload them to hear the big ones for you to hear as well. I will also quickly say too that our Christmas episode, I've had a few messages about this because we haven't really advertised this yet. It will be happening. We are slowly trying to finalise the dates. We are not too sure of who's going to be on that episode. We're hoping to kind of maybe do a little bit of a different format this year for the Christmas episode, but it'll be a live episode again. We'll be celebrating the year, former Survivor contestants, and of course you can get involved with that too. For more details, hopefully this weekend, just keep an eye on that. Side plug to, of course, the Amazing Race Oz, Noah Groves. With that, we'll be back again for this week's episode, as well as Big Brother Oz, a very special edition. Big Brother's over within Australia, but we have a very special episode, an interview special, where you can hear an interview with her Lord and Mighty Holiness herself, Priya Malik, who, if you listen to any of Big Brother Oz, myself and Kristen just admired her from the start to the end. We had her on the show, as well as Estelle Landy from the 9th season, finished 3rd, and of course had some interesting feuds throughout this season with our regular weekly guest, Benjamin Norris. So stay tuned for that as well. As always, we appreciate your support and your feedback. Thank you very much for making our episodes go to number one. We've had a few of our exit interviews go to number one, our Jeremy one and our Julie one. Currently right now, I can see our West one is sitting at number 5 on the iTunes chart, so we always appreciate your support. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It does mean a lot that you are listening to these, whether or not you like them or not. I don't really care, just as long as you're listening to them. It's an honour to be able to do this and present this to you, and as always, thank you very much for supporting our show. It really does mean a lot. We're not the most flashiest in terms of what we put out. We don't exactly have the big name experts from the panel ourselves. We try and get the guests on for you, but look, we put a lot of passion into the show, and we do hope and appreciate that you will at least enjoy it somewhat, even if you hate our guts. I'm just kidding. Subscribe to us on iTunes, subscribe to us on Stitcher, any service that allows you to subscribe to a podcast. Leave us feedback. It's simple, it's easy. You just click on the leave feedback section of your subscriber. We always like reading that as well. Please do follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and for everything, SurvivorOz.com. You can find all interviews, episode recaps, articles, and everything else in between is your one-stop shop for everything to do with Survivor Oz. Until next week, my name is Ben. This has been Survivor Oz. The tribe has spoken. We will speak to you next time on The Trains.